So great of you all to turn out here. I'm Mark Witty. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Studies from the Economics Department, and glad to welcome you and welcome all of our graduates and their families and friends. And I'm very glad also to welcome a recent alumna and soon-to-be alumna who will have some remarks for you. But yeah, so just a little bit about economics and why I hope you're glad that you chose this for your major, or one of your majors. So we think what we teach here in economics is of enormous social value. And, I think that it goes to making good social decisions. And I think that's why economists are in such demand for places that do consulting or finance or tech or government. That I think that economics is an important part of solving many of society's most pressing problems. Now, for many years now, just a number of years now, we've been a STEM major, and we bring this up mostly just to yank the chains of our friends who are doing chemistry or physics or something like that and see how much they can roll their eyes. But yeah, a lot of our social issues are things that people might think are STEM, like real STEM, but are really social problems and problems where economics has a lot to say. So like climate change, I certainly realize there's a lot of science there, but if we beat this thing, it's because we solved a social problem. Or keeping the economy moving during COVID. Okay, well, that's clearly a social problem, something where economics has a lot to say. Or like Moderna, I mean, it's magical. They basically had their vaccine ready to go within days of getting the DNA. But getting that vaccine made, that was a social problem that was quite a thing to solve. Or getting people to take this miraculous stuff. All right, well, that's a social problem we're still working on. But I digress. We hope that we have given you the intellectual tools to serve society well as to see the flaws that remain in economics and to find ways to fix those too. Now, you all just so impress me. I was up this morning a bit before 6 a.m., which you might think would be a good time just to allow me to walk along the shore of Lake Michigan in deep and private contemplation, but no. So many of you are up there, up and out early this morning, and you didn't look like you just, jumped out of bed and got out there. You look like you've been out there a while, and it gets me wondering, what time do you guys tend to get up in the morning? I mean, I know econ majors work very hard, and I just have to say, I'm so impressed by you that you're out there, after all the excitement this week, that you're still, up there with your morning rituals. But seriously, it's a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful for reasons that relate to economics. So I guess I'm probably gonna ruin them, but all right, so we all know like the perfectly competitive constant returns to scale model, which is pretty great, right? Am I right? And like deviations from it lead to like deadweight loss and like negative externalities and all that, or like the deadweight loss from taxation, which is a great thing to talk about if you want to get funding from people who don't like taxation. But yeah, so it's a wonderful model, but a lot of life is actually increasing returns to scale. That's something that helped Paul Romer get the Nobel Prize, or will help Joe Mulcair get the Nobel Prize for his work on this. It was a big insight from the work of Adam Smith that a lot of the important things in life are increasing returns to scale. And it's why economists are so pro-trade. It's why we're so pro-immigration. We think that having more people together and being able to interact with more people gets us better results. Sharing ideas, producing at larger scale, things like that. And beneficial externalities are an example of increasing returns to scale. And I have a specific beneficial externality in mind, and that is spending time with each other. That we enjoy spending time with our family and friends, and hopefully they enjoy it too. And so when you go out there and you do that, when you get together with groups of friends, you are creating a beneficial externality. It's something you enjoy and they enjoy. You're creating good memories that you will long cherish and they will long cherish. And so I'm saying take advantage of increasing returns to scale, make all the good beneficial externalities you can, interact with each other, stay close. That is something that is good for you, and it's very good for society. And hopefully you'll stay involved with Northwestern. And toward that end, I would like to introduce to you Sonya Brown, or Sonya Turnau as I knew her when she was an outstanding economics student here at Northwestern. And this was back before we'd worked out the N is in our DNA slogan that we just all love so much. But yeah, that she was, well, I'll let her explain a little bit, but yeah, that she wasn't just, the basic economics major, that she was artistically very talented. And actually, because we have a lot of people like that, but yeah, that, it's just the diversity of talents you guys have are amazing. But she, using her economics talents, has gone on to do tremendous things in the world of commerce. And just going my notes here because I can't hold all this in my head. So Sonia joined Norwest in 2011, and she's been working in investment banking for 20 years. And so she's a general partner and co-head of the firm's growth equity team. She's based in Norwest Palo Alto office, and she's focused on growth equity and buyouts, investing across a wide range of sectors with particular interest in consumer products and services like internet and e-commerce, which I'm telling you, it's going to be big. Retail, business services. Her current investments include Jolin, Junk King, Kendra Scott, Mayleys, Mount Ops, Senrev, and SmartSign, which I presume if I were cool, I would know what all of these are. And Sonia's responsible for Northwest involves investments in PCA Skin, which has been acquired by Colgate-Palmolive, Bailey 44, which has been acquired by Digital Brands Group, and the Learning Experience, which has been acquired by Golden Gate Capital. She's a board member. She's a board observer at Madison Reed, and she's got a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from us, and an MBA from Harvard Business School. And she's also a chartered financial analyst. Anyway, we're honored to have her back here today, and been very grateful for all the time she's put in with us and our students. And so, yeah, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Sonya Brown.
Thank you for the introduction. It seems like just yesterday I was in your shoes, graduating from Northwestern and getting ready to step into the next chapter of my life, embarking on a career in finance. Now coming full circle, it's my honor and privilege to inspire you to do the same. You have just graduated from one of the top universities and one of the top economics departments in the world. I am jealous. You all have accomplished something I actually did not. By my count, I was around 4 courses shy of an economics major, if you rearrange the deck a little. Believe it or not, I was a radio, TV, film, and international studies major, and I also completed a minor in business institutions. But if you add up all those economics classes per Bark's remarks, it was pretty close. I really was excited coming out of Northwestern. I leveraged this creative degree that I got to join the media and entertainment group of what was then a well-known bank, Bear Stearns. My father laughed, "They better put you on some international deals to take full advantage of that degree." And I'm proud to say, I just closed my first international investment 27 years later. Today, I have 4 beautiful children, an amazing life partner. We actually started dating when I was a wildcat. And a full-time career, investing in amazing companies, now around the world. For those that said, you can have it all, but not all at one time, well, they hadn't met me yet. Unprecedented. How many times have you heard those words this year? Too many. But that is because it's true. You've lived through one of the most momentous years in the last century. We are now coming out after our year in hibernation. Here in California, we're officially open starting just today. How will we come out? And how and what have we learned? I hope we have learned how interconnected we are. Just as the virus connected the world via infection, we found our own ways to connect with each other. We depend on each other in more ways than we want to admit. We've been isolated, yet dependent on other people we took for granted. Have we learned to be thankful for these connections? Can we take these lessons out into our new world? The vaccine created was amazing and really an international struggle. Yet the main struggle for the vast majority of us was staying connected. We communicated through Zoom, many using Zoom for the first time in their life, like me. Does anyone remember those struggles connecting with family over the holidays? Can you hear me now? You're still on mute, Mom. And Grandpa, your thumb's on the camera. I can tell you I had my fair share with my family. We all learned new technologies and then learned how to teach them to others. Technology has not only changed the way we interact with our family and friends, but also in how we conduct business. Overnight, a new way of doing business emerged, and the financial world showed its resilience. The new technology has been created to help us and our economy to survive, not unlike technological advances of the past that enabled the industrial revolutions. Many of these technology advances will make an incredible impact on our future, your future. You are entering the workforce during one of the most unique times in history, and the opportunities ahead of you are significant. I know this hasn't been the senior year many of you expected. You've just lived through a 100-year event. You are entering into a global economy that's expanding quickly, likely to grow faster than anyone expected just 6 months ago. And people will be looking to economic experts to lead the way in predicting the direction we go from here. In order to predict, economists often look back in history. Where would you rank the pandemic and the world events of the last century? I think you need to go back 100 years to find something of this significance. However, with crisis brings opportunity. Coming out of the Spanish flu, we saw the Roaring '20s. Looks like history may be repeating itself again. We're in the 20s. Thinking back to my first high school economics class with Mrs. Young in Houston, Texas, to money and banking with Professor Mark Witty, the most interesting and inspiring curriculum in my life came from the discipline of economics. It drove me to push myself into uncomfortable territory, into situations where I wasn't the smartest person in the room, to take risks both in the classroom and in the workplace. It drove me to the uncomfortable place of being the only woman in the room for the better part of the past 3 decades. I was raised by my father, who had the foresight to understand that an analyst program in investment banking was the parallel of a residency program in medicine. Yes, my dad is a doctor. Long hours, little sleep, and the mantra, see one, do one, teach one. But I would have paid the bank I worked for rather than the other way around for the amazing experience, learning, and launchpad. And maybe most importantly, that one friend that you will meet that will get you through it all, Tracy. Always remember, the relationships are important. If you were sitting here together, I would say, look to your right, look to your left. They may be the person that introduces you to a job, to an investment, or an opportunity, maybe even a life partner. A few years ago, Professor Witty and I reconnected. I was hoping to work with him to solve a problem. My idea was hiring women directly from undergrad into private equity analyst roles. It was then that I learned of his efforts to increase the number of female economics majors, and I realized the root was deeper. So here I am. Not only do I want to inspire the women and men in the audience today to reach your goals, but I want to be an example to all of you of what determination and passion can build, what listening and open-mindedness can bring, and what diversity and tenacity can embody. As I have reflected on the challenges I encountered over the years since my commencement, I realize none compare to the last year. The pandemic brought fear, isolation, despair. It stole time from all of us. Well, are you ready to make up for it? Indeed, those roaring 20s I predict are here again. I'm pretty sure a few of you have been to some parties. And really, Mark, you may have been seeing people that have been up all night. Company valuations here today are at an all-time high. The Consumer Price Index was up 4.2% in April. 4.2%. That's the fastest rate of inflation we have seen in over 13 years. And I don't think we've seen the end of that yet. We move forward into a new world led by technology. I stand before you via a medium that did not exist during my commencement in 1994. Zoom has transformed the working world you will enter shortly. Its significance is equal to the impact the internet had after I graduated. August 9th, 1995. That was the day Netscape went public. By the way, have any of you even heard of the company Netscape? It was the beginning of the dot-com bubble that culminated in 1999. It was the beginning of the democratization of information. It was an amazing time to be a new graduate, still facile in learning new things and young enough to take big risks. I worked for an internet company. We went public, and later, well, it is no longer. I was a multimillionaire one day, seriously, and a few months later, well, let's just say I took on some debt to go to business school. The stock price fell precipitously when the bubble burst, leaving me with nothing. But through grit and determination, I was nimble enough to hit the escape button and move on to reinvent myself for my next career move. And this is what everyone here today will need as you enter the world: resilience, determination, and the ability to find opportunities and seek answers to problems. The world needs innovators and hustlers. You have in front of you the opportunity to change the world as you see fit. The opportunities to join life-changing companies, or the chance to create your own life-changing service. If you just look around and make connections, you will find this opportunity. And while you are young, take those big risks. As we think about seizing an opportunity, let's look back at Zoom. Well, what will Zoom democratize? Already, I have seen it provide access to people, the ability to get on almost anyone in the world's calendar for a meaningful interaction. I just closed a deal in Israel, all via Zoom. Access to learning, online education with meaningful outcomes. I just witnessed my 15-year-old twins complete high school physics via Zoom. And access to healthcare. I believe telemedicine will enable structural change in the cost of healthcare. While we saw economic loss with the pandemic, imagine what the economic gain and impact this access will bring. You have in front of you an opportunity, perhaps greater than any other generation, to have impact on the world, on the economy, and on your future. The pandemic did not freeze our opportunities. It made our opportunities brighter and bolder. How you use the tools and technology before you will be what engages your generation to create and innovate. Take your intuitions and run with them. Make those connections and build ideas. Further democratize the world and its people by providing more channels of access. With access, you can change the systemic issues created from past generations by using technology to reinvent what it means to be equal and have equity. There will be new economic challenges in your lifetime. If I were to make one prediction here today, it would be that technology will be the answer. It will be the disruptor. It will be the cause, and it'll be the solution. Your jobs will be to use more than math, statistics, and accounting. Your jobs will require you to use technology and to reinvent it. No longer is it just an engineering major's role. It is now part of everything you will do. As an economist, you will constantly be asked to make predictions. In business, we are trying to do the same thing. We too look for data to analyze and synthesize from history. We look to prior company performance to predict future company performance. The base of your education will prepare you well for your futures. An unbiased review of the output of your analysis will be one of the keys to your success in identifying new opportunities. And remember, you learn from every experience. You never know what you may discover on a call with a family member, a friend, a colleague, an executive. One of my best investment ideas came from a tip from my stepmother. She had recently been invited to a mother-daughter party where she came home with a piece of jewelry. The emotional impact the brand Kendra Scott had on her that day told me something. If she was spreading the word, others would be too. I immediately picked up the phone and called Kendra. It wasn't as easy as just one phone call, but I eventually got through, built up trust, and found the opportunity. From making jewelry in her spare bedroom as a single mom trying to make ends meet, to a well-known billion-dollar brand with a spot for Kendra on Shark Tank, not as an idea, but as a guest shark. And last year, when she temporarily had to close over 100 stores, brand lovers went to shop online, growing her e-commerce business, and again, pointing to that resiliency that technology has provided to business. You may have noticed the underlying tone of resiliency, technology, and opportunity in my discussion with you today. It's okay to fail, but fail fast, then fix fast. Get out there and get at it again. You don't have to get everything right. Mostly right is good enough. Whether you land your first job at your dream company, or you choose to look down an unbeaten path and start a journey, you may be nervous. You may find yourself hesitant, or you may simply feel overwhelmed. That is all okay. And when you learn to use those emotions to harness your raw talent and greater potential, you will look back and smile on your more timid days. We have talked about technology and its place now in your future. Remember, you don't need to be a master coder with the skills to hack into a website to leverage the power of technology and apply it to make really life-changing discoveries. You will discover applications for current and future technologies that most may not see because you have the education and the mindset as an economist to understand what to expect, what the trends will look like, and to find the gaps that fill resiliency and technology together. Congratulations to the class of 2021. Mark, you're on mute.
Someday I'll retire. I was going to say, someday I'll get this right, but no, someday I'll retire. No, that was really, really great. I can remember you acing money in banking. I'd forgotten though that you were, we should get you an honorary econ degree, kind of like a PhD from this place. That's, I love the story about you being a multimillionaire and then crashing down to nothing. I wonder how many of our new graduates will do that. Then again, depending on how they've purchased into crypto, they may have done that a couple times already this morning. Anyway, so our next speaker is one of our fantastic new graduates, Katherine Daehler, who, well, let me just get the facts up here. So she's graduating senior and she's studying economics, which is wonderful, but she's also studying sociology, which troubles us a little, but we're Big Tent. Christy Anderson was sociology and she's cool. So, you know, I'm a fan. And she's also getting a certificate in civic engagement, which does not predict a job in consulting or investment banking, and indeed not. So while she was here at Northwestern, she was a research assistant with social policy and with economic development, and she's going to continue that next year. Boy, if I didn't like sociology, I'm not going to like this. She's going to be a research assistant at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. And so, yeah, so she'll be helping out the research mission there, which is actually pretty terrific. And hopefully will lead her to a good PhD program someday and maybe a faculty someplace. Keep us in mind. Keep our email in your contacts. Anyway, so Katie did many wonderful things here, including being a founding member of our Women in Economics and a member of Northwestern's Wildcat Marching Team Spirit Team. And I had not realized this, that she was one of the grinders on the sideline during football games. So anyway, so that makes me extra excited to hear her speech today. So everybody, please join me in welcoming Katie.
Well, thank you, Professor Witty, for that introduction, and good afternoon. Congratulations to all the econ grads gathered here virtually today. I have to say, it seems only appropriate to be here virtually. Don't get me wrong, the past few days doing everything in person has been great, but somehow these in-person events have felt like they're celebrating a different graduating class, one that didn't just go through 4 quarters of virtual school. And as much as I appreciate every praise or cliche about how we are extraordinary people in extraordinary times, I think there were at least 5 in yesterday's hour-long commencement ceremony alone. I can't help but wish that instead of saying, congrats, you made it through some difficult times, someone would just say the obvious. Congrats, the last year kind of sucked. Sorry. When they say that you experience new things in college, I don't think that they meant Zoom. And when they said college will have its ups and downs, I don't think they meant those ups and downs will be pretty much perfectly tied to whether or not your internet connection is unstable. That wasn't what I had in mind, at least. We are probably the first class ever to sit at convocation and watch people walk across the stage and think, oh, that's what that person looks like, instead of, oh, that's what that person's name is. On Sunday, I was finally able to put faces to the little black boxes on my Zoom screen that had been staring me down, named but faceless, for the past year. The vast majority of our digital existence was spent muted with our cameras off, and understandably so. If I've learned anything this year, it's that Zoom fatigue is real. Occasionally, especially at the beginning, people would have their cameras on, though. And in a way, that's when things were the most different. In the olden days, we used to drag ourselves up to tech for class, existing only as an ambiguous fellow student in each other's minds for the necessary 80 minutes. For those 80 minutes, we were just note-taking machines reduced to a simple one-dimensional student. Zoom changed that. Suddenly, even though we were much farther apart, we could know more about each other than we could in the classroom. The colors of childhood bedrooms, the books on our bookshelves, cats and dogs trotting lovingly in and out of view. All of these showed up in the backgrounds of Zoom calls, and all of them gave each of us a little more depth to our lives in the eyes of others. Obviously, that all had existed before. It was just, for the first time, we could see the complexity of our personhood in each other, playing out unsuspectingly in the background of Zoom calls. We got to see a tiny sliver into who we are as people, not just students, but people, with a whole lot of complicated things that make us who we are. Sometimes these things were humorous, sometimes frustrating, sometimes they felt a bit invasive. We've all been living at least parts of our lives in front of each other. Without compare, though, Professor Witty has taken the prize for best Zoom interactions of the pandemic. I know many of you agree because we've talked about it. And so I'd like to take a moment to share some of my favorites to illustrate just how much Zoom has opened the window into each other's lives. Number 1, all the times Professor Witty would randomly record a lecture in a full Spider-Man suit. I'm sure there's a psych experiment here with regards to how many people even noticed. It happened at least 3 times. 2, all the times you could hear his kids running or his dog barking in the background and all the jokes he would make about it. 3, specifically the day after Easter when you could hear his kids still hunting for eggs in the background and screaming when they found one. They were very excited. 4, also specifically that time his daughter showed off her artwork to the class. 5, all of the ECON announcement emails we get that inevitably include an aside from Professor Witty himself. Especially notable contributions include that time he emailed us a very detailed description of his dream on Christmas Eve, and that time he emailed us maybe exclusively to tell us that Tomate was reopening and then had to email us again a few minutes later because he'd gotten the date wrong. 6, that time he sang for us in class because he was so excited he'd gotten his vaccine. 7, anytime he would do an impression of someone famous. I'm not sure if they work in person. I've never had a class with him in person, but they struggle to come across over Zoom. 8, anytime you emailed asking to meet with him, and usually within 5 minutes, you got a reply saying, sure, how about right now, with a Zoom link. Especially notable instances of this include the time I had an advising appointment while he was picking his dog up from the kennel, as well as the time he walked away from his laptop after sending a Zoom link, so I listened to his daughter practice violin for 10 minutes while waiting for him to come back. Thank you, Professor Witty, for showing us what dedication to students looks like, and also for showing us what it means to not have a work-life balance. 9, the time his wife yelled at him in the middle of class for not taking dinner out of the freezer to thaw. And 10, my personal favorite, when his wife came into the room and said, did you know your daughters are playing a drinking game with milk right now? And he said, did you know I'm in class right now? We're all people with lives outside of this university. If nothing else, our Zoom backgrounds have been a reminder that everyone else is a person too. And sometimes being a person is hard and complicated, and maybe sometimes has screaming children or a barking dog in the background, just to make things more interesting. One of the other things you can tell from people's Zoom backgrounds is what they care about. After all, part of the complexity of being a person is caring about things. For most folks, it's things like posters of music, places, or organizations that give it away and show their passions. I care a lot about inclusivity and diversity within econ, which is something that's a little harder to share from my Zoom background. It doesn't quite fit on a poster. This past year, though, I had the great pleasure of helping to start Women in Economics at Northwestern, an organization dedicated to supporting women in their econ classes and encouraging them to develop and pursue their interest in economics. We may only be 1 year in, but we already have over 100 members, which in my mind only speaks to the need for the organization. I could sit here and rattle off stats about women in econ for a long time, but I'll save that for another day. You don't need stats to tell you what surely you've already noticed from looking around an econ class. There are a lot fewer women than men. To say it's not always easy to be a woman in econ would be an understatement, and it turns out it's not always easy to build an organization to support women in econ either. There's a big question of how. How do you make women feel more included? How do you keep up the diversity seen in intro classes all the way to the upper level classes? How do you connect students with career opportunities and mentors that interest them? We're still figuring all of that out, but at its foundation, our organization is committed to trying. I believe that recognizing the multitude of identities within the department and helping students feel connected is a strong place to start. I know for me, having a connection with other women and faculty made all the difference. Shout out to Professor Kutzman for that one. Our hope is that women in econ will serve as the point of connection for future econ students so that years from now, someone else doesn't have to give this same speech. We all have things we care about. It's one of the things that makes us more than just one-dimensional students in a classroom, but rather complex people. And it's not just us, the wonderful econ students of Northwestern, who are complex. It's everybody else too. That's what makes it complicated. You see, for the past 4 years, we've spent most of our time talking about rational actors, these fictional people who know exactly how much they're willing to pay for every slice of pizza and can of pop on the planet. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, the real world doesn't work like that. People are not always rational actors. People are idiots, which is only surprising until you remember how idiotically difficult it is to be a person. And sometimes idiots don't bargain rationally, and sometimes idiots change their behavior with nudges, and sometimes idiots don't update their behaviors with new information. Sometimes we're all idiots. That's what makes life interesting. Because people are sometimes idiots and not always rational actors, not everything that we've learned the past 4 years will apply perfectly to the real world. You may not be able to graph decreasing marginal returns or know when you're creating deadweight loss. The answers to problem sets won't be nice whole numbers anymore. Things are about to get complicated, but that doesn't mean that what we've learned isn't useful. No matter what you do, you learn the simple things first. Start basic and build up. We use models of rational actors in perfect competition to learn something, because knowing something is far better than knowing nothing. And then you push and poke at it until your model looks a little more like the real world. Start simple and then make it complicated. That's why we took 202 before 310-1 and 310-1 before our field courses. We started at the very beginning, because even though econ doesn't really make sense without calculus, it's still better than knowing nothing. Now we've built up to the ultimate field course, life. It's time we take what we've learned here and actually put it in the field, using it for something far more important than a final. To do good, both for ourselves and others, and put all our tools to the task to make the world just a little bit better. People aren't numbers or rational actors, and thank goodness they're not. They're a lot more interesting. They all have Zoom backgrounds that show they're more than that they care about things, but they sometimes forget to take dinner out of the freezer, and sometimes they load 16 tons just to get another day older and deeper in debt. Sometimes they're idiots. Sometimes we'll be idiots too. But at least we'll be idiots with econ degrees from Northwestern. So congrats 2021 econ grads. Zoom school is officially over.
You're on mute, Mark.
Well, I'm all verklempt there. That was our graduates are remarkable, and I guess that's the 12th time you've heard it. But yeah, that was a wonderful testament to how great our students are, and I was very touched by that. Thank you very much. Yeah, so all of our students are wonderful, and every time I interact with them, it is reinforced to a greater degree. Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you all. I should also, well, and Sonia certainly, but a shout out to Kayla, who made this and all the senior week things work for us, which given Zoom and email and all the other sort of insanity with going with Northwestern, is quite an accomplishment. And Christy Anderson and Ian Savage and Michelle Obahanik, who keep this department running and by far the most efficient. But most of all, just thank you, students, for making teaching economics here such a rewarding life mission. And thank you all the parents and families for supporting them. All right, go out and do, as Katie said, do the ultimate field course.